about this love, about this, about this love, about this love, love. How you guys doing? My name is Dale Skinner with my wife, Sherelle.
Hey.
We're About This Love podcast coming at you from the MD studios in Baltimore, Maryland. Thank you for tuning in with us. We hope you guys enjoyed the episode on last week, setting boundaries with just myself. Today, my wife is going to chime in on this topic today about setting boundaries. And since she didn't join me last week, I'll let her start off first this week. Ladies first.
Ladies first.
Uh-huh.
So I really liked. Well, one, I should just say thank you for, doing the honors and letting me, I guess, chime in on your episode.
Our episode?
Nah, it was your episode. You did it solo.
Last week was my episode. This week is our episode.
Okay, fine. But no, so I definitely enjoyed, and I hope you all enjoyed the episode last week, just about setting boundaries, and I hope that it helped you to really take a step back and look at the boundaries that you may have set. Like, I know Dale,
or may not have set,
or things that you thought you had in place, but oftentimes we don't have clear lines with just certain people, certain things that we will do or will not do in life. And so I think the questions that you asked last week, Dale, they were really good. Like, it had me take a step back, and I'm just like, okay, well, what are some boundaries that I have set in my life? One of the obvious things for me was with, our child, with our son. And it's like, well, what boundaries do I have set with him? And I know when you and I first got married, that was something that had to change. Like, the boundaries that I had set for him was a little bit different because he was so used to it being mommy and me. And now now it's me, mommy, and Dale.
Yeah.
And so I think that was one, like, in my life, one thing that I had looked back on. I was like, well, that's a major boundary that had to be set, had to be changed. Like, for example, I don't know, like, we used to share a bed at one point in time. When you're single and you're going through financial issues, you're moving from place to place. And it's not like you're moving from place to place, but, from year to year, it's like, oh, well, I got a 2-bedroom, then I got a 1-bedroom. And so now we need to adjust. Or remember the time my apartment got flooded? I had gotten put out of my apartment because it got flooded from the apartment upstairs. And it was just kind of like, all right, well, we're going to have to go somewhere and, go back to our family's house. Well, and of course, that was fine because it was just my son and I. But then he got used to sleeping in the bed with me because we had to do it for a certain period of time. But once you and I got married, it was like, no, you need to go and be in your own room. I know that's a boundary that people set with their children, or they may not set with their children. They may be totally okay with their children coming into the bedroom with them and sleeping with them. But it was just very different for him, I know. And it was very different for me because that's just something that I was used to. And you were like, no, we're not doing that. We're not going to keep doing that. And so I'm just like, yeah, I could see how that could be problematic, And I do appreciate us setting that boundary, because even when, I don't know, I just want to go lay down. I just want to go lay down, take a nap, just break away from you guys. And it's just like, okay, good. Doors closed. No one's going to bother me. He's not going to come in here. He's not going to come in here. I mean, I don't know. Maybe sometimes he used to like sneak in the bed when I would be taking a nap and I wake up. Oh, remember the cat used to do that too?
Yeah, but it would like crawl, sleep on top of the bed.
You said what?
I was thinking, did it sleep on top of the bed or what? I forget, the cat.
Oh no! Remember one time you said you came home and I was taking a nap and the cat was sleeping on top of me. You were like, the cat was right on top of you. You didn't even see. And that's back when we had cats. And I was just like, no, that cat wasn't. This cat was so obsessed. And that was another boundary. Like, people don't think about that, but that was another boundary. I mean, even with our pets, it was like, I had to put the cat out of the room. I had to shut the door when I went to sleep with the daggone cat.
Yeah, because we don't do animals in the bed. That's a no.
Yeah.
In our household, nah. Animals are filthy. You're not about to climb in my bed where I lay. Nah.
What, fresh? You don't like that deal? Fresh out the litter box?
Nah.
Get
cool.
that warm.
I'm cool.
That warm litter box aroma.
I'm an animal lover, but I'm just not that dedicated.
Okay. But yeah, so I mean, those are just a few examples that I reflected back on. When I was listening back on the episode, when you were speaking about like the boundaries, and you had phrased the question or asked the question, what were some boundaries that you have set in your life? And so those were a few. When we first got married, I had thought about that. There was another one too. There was something else you had mentioned about
people not being married.
Yeah, people not being married. And I was like, well, why didn't you mention in the episode? And I mean, I'm glad that we're, doing this part 2, this continuation. But I was wondering, well, why didn't you mention, people not being married, coming to the house and you will offer for them to sleep in separate rooms? It's funny because actually my grandmother did that and does that to this day. Like, if you're not married, she don't care how old you are. It's like, well, we have other places for you guys to sleep.
Yeah.
I'll make arrangements for you all, and it's not a question of like, I mean, some people have tried her, but it's not a question of like, well, we grown, why not? It's just okay.
You grown, but you're in my house.
Well, yeah, that's my house.
I pay bills in my house, so.
Well, yeah, but that could be that's something else too. And I just kind of cringe when people say I pay bills, because then what if somebody helps you with bills? Then they could be disrespectful.
No, what I'm saying is what I was saying is from the line that I was saying is that if and this is just how I feel about it, and this is how I was raised by my pops and my mother when I was younger. My father would teach us, when you go to somebody's house, for a long time. It's just certain parts of people's house you just don't go in, and my mom and dad would always be like, if someone sets a rule in their house, that's the rule. You don't question it. You don't ask questions. That's their house. If you don't like it, you can leave. Because that's the place where they pay the mortgage or the rent or the bills, the utilities, the cable. Even if you are living with somebody or moving with somebody, temporary, you're still, even though you're living with me, still, respect the rules that I set, in place in my house. In the past, before I got married, I've lived with my brother and his wife, and different people. And it's like, whatever, yes, it's some rules that people set up that I did not like, but I never questioned it because that's their house, and also I never felt like it was unfair, or belittling in any way. So it's just, you just gotta be respectful to other people's homes and the rules that they set. It's like, it's not really up for debate. This is my home, and hopefully any rules that I would set for someone coming into my home, I would be, respectful of you, but also not really caring how you feel, because this is my house, like my pops used to say when I was a kid, if you don't like it, you can always leave. You don't have to stay.
Right.
But I always tell people, I prefer that you stay. I don't want you to leave, but if you feel some type of way, or if you don't like the rule that I set in my house, then I 100% understand. And hey, to each his own. I'm not gonna be upset with you or mad, with you. Likewise, I hope you wouldn't be upset or mad at me for the rules that I set inside my home. Where I raise my children and my wife live.
Right. Well, you know what? And I wanted to touch on that because, like I said, in the last episode, you did not mention, like, you mentioned that about other couples, but you didn't mention our experience. We had traveled together before we were married several times.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone knew that we were together, like we were engaged, and they knew we were getting married. So, and I had a few family members ask me this when we were traveling. They were like, oh, so how that's going to work? Because remember, at the time, you wouldn't even like step foot into my apartment unless it was like a third party, and not know.
It's kind of different though.
No. No, we're talking about boundaries.
Well, it's different with us because we didn't live together. Like, we wasn't living in the same house anyway. So it was like, it wasn't really a big deal for us. But like,
I'm not saying it was a big deal.
Somebody that's living together and you're not married, then you may feel offended or feel some type of way about it because you live together. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. No, I get what you're saying, but I'm giving our, our example of how we navigated that.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't live together, no. And I guess had we lived together, then we would have just gotten a hotel. You know what I'm saying? Like that would have been a discussion that we had if we went to someone's home and they were like, oh, you guys aren't married, you can't you can't sleep in the same bedroom. But no, so from our real life personal, our real life example, this is what we really did. No lie. So
on many occasions.
And people have asked me, like I said, family had asked me, well, you guys are traveling, so y'all all gonna stay at his so-and-so house or you all gonna stay in the same room. So there was instances where I took the bedroom and he stayed on the couch at a friend's home. There was another, actually, at several people's homes. There was another instance where I stayed in a hotel and he stayed at a family member's house. And it was just, we had that boundary set in place in our relationship. And this was set before we started, making plans to travel together and making plans to go places. And it was like people, were like, okay, people accepted it. And we didn't have to go to their home and say, hey, like, is it okay if we got a room together? And I mean, not that the friends and family that we visited would have been okay with that. I'm not sure because we didn't ask. But at the same time, what we did ask for was, separate accommodations. When they weren't offered, like if they weren't offered, we were like, yeah, so how are the sleeping arrangements? Is there enough space for us to sleep separately? Or, one take the couch, the other take the room, or however that was going to work out. And of course, we're not staying like weeks at a time like that, because then that's a whole different, for a weekend, because that's a whole different discussion about boundaries. Because then it's like, well, you basically living here and you up on, in my kitchen / living room / dining room. So no, y'all can't sleep separately kind of thing. But that's another boundary that needs to be set or needs to be said. And I think oftentimes people go into these, get into situations, and before they do, they never think about, they just assume, I should say. They assume. Like, what was something that you had assumed, Dale? Like, you went into a situation and you just assumed that, okay, well, I live this way, so they should automatically, accept that, or they should know.
Well,
so we don't have to talk about it.
Well, I'll say this right here. I know oftentimes when family members tell me, "Hey, I'm gonna be in town," this day and that day on work. Most of the times, I'll take off, so I can spend time with them. But and I used to expect this too, but I don't anymore. But it's like now when when me and my wife go somewhere, go out of town somewhere, or we go back to my hometown, let people know, hey, I'm gonna be home, for a couple of days or whatever, and you go there and you don't see nobody because everybody at work, and again, I mean, I like I said, I used to out of ignorance and out of just not knowing, I used to be like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna see A, B, C, and D, but then you go in town, not seeing anybody, which to me is fine, but it's like I just expected people to, if I let you know, if I give you a month or 2 months, advance that I'm going to be in town, even if you took off work or plan for us to spend the afternoon together or the nighttime together, you know what I'm saying? But people just really didn't, so I just, that's just something that I always assume, and it's something, and I assume that because that's something that I did or that I still do to this day, but I no longer expect people to do that,
Yeah, that's true. I think that's a good example. Just about how, so basically what you're saying is you would expect someone to treat you as far as a guest coming back into town or family coming back into town.
Take time out of their busy schedule to spend a couple hours with you. I ain't even talking about a day or just a couple hours, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's just, what I expected, but I no longer expect that,
Yeah, but that sounds like boundaries and expectations really go hand in hand.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking our next podcast, probably be on expectations.
I mean, well, you know what? Yeah, it could be. If that's what if we don't really get into it here, but because, well, let me just say this. Because like we're already on the topic of boundaries and expectations, I think we should just go ahead and expand on it. We should go ahead and expand on it by giving an example or two.
I mean, I just say keep it on boundaries, because expectation in itself it's a lengthy topic within itself, and just I think the two coincide, but I also feel like we should just do a whole nother episode on that, because you start talking about expectations. It's like, well, what do I expect from you?
You can go down a rabbit hole.
Exactly, you can go down a rabbit hole, but for now, I think boundaries, because for me, boundaries and expectation, they coincide, but they're not the same. It's like because for me, it's like my wife, she expects me to come home she expects me to come home every day as I get off work. I expect you to cook dinner or breakfast, and that's just something that we've established in our marriage, and that's what's done. But as far as boundaries, that's not really it's inside my home. If you're not married, you're not sleeping, in the same room. That's a boundary that I've set in my home. And it doesn't matter what the other person expects. This is the boundary that I've set in my house, and this is what it's going to be. Like we don't allow people to. We ask people not to use profanity. If we have our son around, because we don't use profanity, or we don't around my son or at all. So it's like you can't be around my son talking reckless. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, I ask you, hey, can you please refrain from speaking like that? If not, well then we have to roll out. I have to leave. I don't allow my son to be around that kind of language. So there's just boundaries is something like this is what it is. It's not up for discussion. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think expectation is while it coincides, it's different. Because the expectation is both parties. A boundary can only be just the one party. This is my boundary. What I won't allow.
I don't think a boundary is one party. I think a boundary has to be two parties, because somebody has to be there at that wall. You put up that boundary for a reason.
Yeah. Yes, but no. It's kind of like, I mean, we got family that we're like, well, this is what I'm doing, and I don't care what you say. You're like, oh, cool then. You know what I'm saying? Well, it's time for me to roll out. So I feel like expectation is when both parties come to understanding and they both agree, and the way that I view it, in my perspective of it,
I disagree. Because the expectation could be something that like I can have an expectation of you, and you not even know that I had this expectation. And even if my expectation is, man, I wish he would bring me home ice cream every day from, after work or whatever. I mean, that you don't have to agree to that expectation. I feel like maybe a boundary is more so of like, okay, this person called me talking reckless, and they should know that I'm not going to have this, have this conversation with them while they're talking like that, and I'm just going to hang up. And so I get what you're saying, that they both have to agree, but I feel like maybe you have it opposite, or maybe we're just looking at it, from two different perspectives, which I believe we are, because we're two different people. But, about in my mind, a boundary is what I think a boundary is what you think an expectation is your perspective of an expectation. And so, with a boundary, and I've done this before, where someone called me and it's kind of been like, what you want? And I'm like, well, dang, well, you called me. Why are you calling me with such an attitude, as if,
like, call you asking what you want?
Yeah, like, what you want? And I'm just kind of like, okay, you know what? You're not really, not that I want you to call me with pleasantries, but if you want to call my phone, don't be calling my phone with an attitude when you genuinely want to talk to me. So until you understand that I'm not responding to you in that way, the boundary that I'm going to set is, if you call me and the first words out your mouth, if you call me and the first words out of your mouth is, what you want, or, well, I've been wanting to talk to you and you ain't answer, I'm gonna hang up. just like that, I'm gonna hang up.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I didn't mean to call you. Don't let that be the first word out of your mouth when you call me. Oh, I didn't mean to call you. Click. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's some people who I understand that just happens on accident. And it's like, oh, well, my bad. It was a butt dial. I didn't mean to call you. It was a pocket dial. I'm sorry. But if you just with that, aggressiveness of, well, I ain't mean to call you, but what you doing? Click, I'm hanging up. Because it's just, that's a boundary I set because I do have feelings. I do I want to feel like you're calling me because you want to talk to me and not out of obligation.
And not only that, like in another element, or what I say, an important, and why we should have boundaries why we should have boundaries is that oftentimes, boundaries protect us. Boundaries protect and guard. It's kind of like, we have a dog. We have a puppy, a 6-month-old Rottweiler, and we have a fence in our yard, and the fence is to protect her from going out in the street, getting hit by a car. So boundaries are not always bad. Boundaries are also used as a source of protection, whether it's emotionally or physically. In the scriptures, there's scriptures in the Old Testament where it says, don't go past the boundaries that your forefathers set up. And it's not talking about like an actual fence or a post, but it's saying like, in the past, God told your forefathers, don't do A, B, C, and D, or don't eat this, or don't go to this nation, or don't marry outside of your culture, or don't get involved with any other gods outside of the Lord your God. But those are just boundaries that the Lord set up to protect His people. So boundaries are actually, they're good. They protect. So when you actually live a life without boundaries, there's actually there's no protection for you, whether it's emotionally, psychologically, or physically. There's no protection. It's like I know there's been a few cases in my family where people have dated underage individuals. It's like, well, that's a boundary set up by the law to protect a person who may be mentally immature and may not understand or be aware that this person may just be trying to take advantage of you for whatever reason. So it's like that. But boundaries are used for protection. And oftentimes when you don't have boundaries set up in your life, you oftentimes, people who don't have boundaries, you oftentimes you'll look at their life and be like, yeah, their life is very chaotic. They don't have any boundaries. Where there's no boundaries, there's chaos, there's confusion, there's all kind of discords and stuff like that. So I just feel like just boundaries just protect. They protect what you believe in, and in my opinion, they protect what we deem as sacred.
What about those who feel like they're being controlled by their boundaries? That's just something to think about. Oftentimes people can see a boundary as, like, for instance, children. Oftentimes I've heard of people saying, yeah, as soon as I leave my parents' house, I'm going to, go wild. Or as soon as they get off to college, that's why they go buck wild, because their parents have controlled them. And I think boundaries without explanation can be dangerous. Understanding could be dangerous, for the other party. And really, it's because we don't know why those are set. Another example, we went to a friend's home, and I'm gonna make this quick because we're about to close out. But another example, we went to a friend's home, and they said, well, we don't watch certain movies or certain things in our home because it seemed to be affecting our children
and how they sleep
and how they sleep, how they react to things. They're highly sensitive children. And I was just like, wow. At first it was just kind of like, okay, that's a little over the top. When you love a person, you do sit back and think, well, why did they, or even ask them, why did you guys consider doing that with your children? Or why did you set those boundaries in your home? You have those conversations, and it's not as though, oh, because that's the law in their home, then that's what we should be doing in our home, because that might not work for us, or what have you, whatever the boundary may be, but that boundary that they set was for a good reason, and it was to protect their children. Now, when they get to a certain age, not that that boundary will be removed, but maybe when the children ask, well, how come we don't do this or how come we don't do that? For example, a boundary for my son that I had set was, I don't want to celebrate Halloween. And so it was kind of like, are you being over religious about it, or what's the reason why? And I was like, well, he's like screaming his head off in the middle of the night after like watching scary movies, like kid appropriate scary movies, or seeing people in masks. And I had to sit with him for hours while he's crying out. And I'm just like, okay, you know what? I want you to feel protected in your home. I want you to feel safe at night. I don't want you to fear anything but the Lord.
Yeah.
But yet, if I'm allowing you to watch these horror movies that are deemed, by society age appropriate, and then at that same night you're going to bed like, oh, there's a monster there, or there's a this there.
I know. On one time he was like, yeah, we talking to the spirits. I'm like, whoa, pause. Well, we ain't talking to no spirits.
The only spirit we acknowledge is the Holy Spirit.
Outside of that, they got to make sure he have a holy in front of his name.
Exactly. That's the only spirit we acknowledge up in here is the Holy Spirit. But yeah, exactly.
And also, like on top of that, like I was thinking back to our friend, and and him and his wife did explain to us and elaborate. And one of the things that I will say is I respected them for that is because oftentimes, like, I know people let their kids watch scary movies and like, well, nah, he cool, but it's like, and that's one of the things that you learn when you become a parent, or one of the things you should know or should understand is that children don't view things the way we do. Like a child may see a scary movie with a monster or a demon in that junk, but to them, they don't recognize that it's not real. Like me, I know it's not real. It's a dude in a mask, but it's not real. To them, they don't have the mental capacity at that age to, depending on how old they are. Let me say that first. Depending on how old they are, they don't have the mental capacity to recognize that it's not real. So it's like you letting a child watch something at that age and they're thinking it's real life. The monster about to come out of the bed and get them. It's like, nah, we're not doing that. If you get older and want to watch a scary movie, that's different. But it's like, for now, I know at this age, you don't have the maturity and the natural mental capacity to know it's not real. Yeah. Even if I tell you it's not real, it's like, well, whatever, it's real. So it's like, until we get to that point, nah, we're just not gonna go there.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to like close out on this. What exactly are you leaving people with? And I phrase the question like that because whether we know it or not, we set boundaries in all aspects of our lives with the different relationships that we come in contact with. And from the examples that you gave and the examples that I gave was for our children. The boundaries that we're setting, we want them to, feel secure. We want our children, we want people to feel secure in our home. We want them to feel like this is a place where, where they know for sure that we will rule for the benefit of them or the benefit of others. And it won't be misunderstood. Boundaries that we set for, for our friends or set with our friends. It's like, okay, for sure that our character is going to reflect one of honesty, of truthfulness. What's something that you want our boundaries to reflect to those you are in a relationship with?
I mean, just godliness, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Just godliness. And I know for me, one of the things that I'm big on, because when I was younger, I used to be a liar. I used to be a compulsive liar, but I'm all about telling the truth, you know what I'm saying? And whenever I say something that's wrong, even if it's by mistake, say, "Oh, my bad, man. I told a lie. Oh, my bad, man. I gave you misinformation. I was wrong, But that's just me, you know. So I don't want to be known as a liar. So to me, it's just being able to tell the truth and not just fabricate things because I have the ability just to tell stories. Like, no, this is this is what happened. I made a mistake, But that's just me, though. That's just me. And being able to apologize or being able to admit when I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Thank you all for rocking with us today. Share your thoughts and your views on the podcast. Just what are some boundaries that that you've set up in your life? If you care to share, find one or two, that you don't mind sharing publicly. Sometimes people are like, well, I don't feel like, but it's like, find one or two, that you don't mind sharing. And follow us on Instagram, Facebook, About This Love, and always indulge our podcast on YouTube, Facebook, and Audio Mac. Thank you for rocking with us. Yours truly, Dale, and my wife Sherelle. Peace.